Kumutunda kuliko nsimbye gwire muwala wa Mbaire yagendanga nadda aligenda okudanga luwedde okwabya ani oyo akuba kumutunda kuliko nsimbye gwire muwala wa Mbaire. You know, to represent a voice is one of the most powerful things, and I was not going to talk about Luga Flow.
Nalinjo chagonja Nankubo mugo Busungu bwabayima ne bubuno mubiri katungulwana dda katungulwana dda dolo 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 dolo
Anyoyo akuba kumutunda kuliko nsimbe gwire muwala wa Mbaire yagenda ngazadda aligenda okudanga lwamala okwabya naluwedde okwabya
Sulandowoza ngandowoleza abaana wabigana oluusi nange nenkaba kumavivi bwenkyonyikira essala zangula amaziga ag'ennaku nze genkaba.
You have to be reminded that young people today don't do this. It's become a taboo to even speak your own language.
Luga n'ekisumuluzo ekitwiza ku mizigi ekinagwaira badada ife gye basookeraku. Waidome joyalo buliri bwembwala nabuna mavunya bwensituka ngandirawo bwensituka baba ngandirawo obukompe buli mu nsagambo daife edabadada ife.
So all of that to bring you to hip hop, because we're hip hop and fresh. What I wanted to remind you of, see, when the stock came about and the presentation came, someone say, hey, you know, you're the godfather of Luga Flow, we need somebody to do something. I say, you know what? A lot of voices in Uganda are underscored or don't get an opportunity to get put on because they speak a different language, they come from different tribes, they're not given an opportunity to thrive because of just one factor, the colonial elements. What I wanted to let you know, that this is what I became when people told me I couldn't be anything. The quick backdrop of my story, I call myself a creative junkie. I come from a family that grew up in church, migrated to Canada at the age of 12. And of course, growing up in North America wasn't easy. Was raised by a single mother. It's 8 of us. And she took her time to keep us grounded in the African heritage and remind us where we're from. But when you live in North America, it's not easy, you know, because there's so many things, you know, that kind of take you up as a young person. I left at the age of 12, remember. You know, and so growing up in Canada and learning all these new variations and cultures, I started to think about, you know, my friends back home, the threads that I'm losing, how I used to wear my uniform going to school. I don't do that anymore. All of these things became authentic attachments of memoirs, you know. And to fast forward, you know, my father deceased in 1995, giving me a thrive opportunity to come back to Africa in such a tragedy moment, you know. But this tragedy moment would then rekindle my awakening to remember the beauty of Africa and never to forget. Leading me here today, you know, I always tell people, I remind them that my journey is dedicated to the struggle and the authentic voice of those that are usually not heard. You know, and so Luga Flow, you know, if you read the caption, the authentic voices, Luga Flow is a formation, that was introduced in Uganda from a group of young men who used to roam around cities and streets, saying, we do this thing called hip hop, but our community doesn't know it. Every time we try to do it, we had to do it in English. There was this assimilating, thing that came through as the first facade we had to put on so that people could be able to, like, they're cool, they're hype, look at how they're dressing. All of these identities that we were following that were so much far away from our true identity. And so the formation of Luga Flow, when it started, we started to have this young spirit of saying, you know what? And I have to, to track you back. 1996, opportunity to go to Mwanza. I'm about 16 years old. I'm going to represent hip-hop on an island where a bunch of other young brothers rapping in Swahili are doing a lot of things that I've never seen before. I get over there, and they're like, oh, how come the brothers from Uganda were rapping in English? And for the first time in my life, I was reflecting and saying, but these guys are rapping in Swahili. We have better beats. They have better language skills. So there was a kind of balance. So, mutually, we're connected. And then they were able, to empower us to then return with a new message of saying we could do it in our own tongue. So officially, they planted that seed. When that seed got planted, little did we know that our own community would not be supporting us. Matter of fact, it would be the worst community to deal with. Oh, God forbid, you cannot look like that British guy. You're not anybody. God forbid, you cannot look like that American. You're not anybody. God forbid, in your schools, don't even speak your language. And all of these things became conditionings. I remember when we did our first Luganda song, and a lot of our peers in the English rapping sector said that these rappers are rapping in Luganda ain't going nowhere. And I'm reading newspapers, they're asking them, what do you think about those guys that rap in Luganda? Comment is like, oh, yeah, they're not going anywhere. They're stranded locally, and they should give up their careers. Reality is that fast forward the clock. I left Uganda after 1 year, being here with my father at deceased. I stayed here for a whole year. Went back and I started traveling the world. I lived in Berlin, Germany, went to Denmark. I got exposed to a lot of different. Matter of fact, when I got to German, I saw a lot of Dutch hip hoppers. And I said, man, they're also doing it in German. So that whole thing of like trying to front for my language is not working. I actually have to keep up with this. By the time I would land back in Canada, I was starting to have these visions of encouraging my young friends, of telling them, it's real, it's happening. I found it in German. I found it in Sweden. You need to actually keep doing it. So Bataka Squad, you'll hear that name in Uganda. It's known as the pioneers of hip-hop in Uganda. All because we took a challenging, narrow path to show our young people that hip-hop could be a part of our culture and tradition. So today, in this representation of the authentic voices, my whole notion is to expose a lot of these communities who don't know what these young men and women are saying, all because they feel like this is an imported culture. This is to open your mind and allow you to thrive, to know that there's a new awakening happening in Africa, and it's embedded in the creative ventures that young people are starting to open up to say, I want to go back to my village. Every time a young person meets Luga Flow or comes to the table where we convene, they're like, so you mean I could go back to my village? And so you mean I could share this with my peers? And do you really say it works? And then I pull up a peripheral of like events that I've experienced. And they're like, you really got there? You really met so-and-so? You really were able to do that and rap it in your language? I say, yeah, well, the world is waiting for the authentic you. They're not waiting for your emulation characters. And what's the problem with Africa today? See, I'm going to break it down also in a problem context. I grew up, I went to school here from kindergarten to primary 7. And when I get to America, I got to understand that, hold up, all this time I was singing a bunch of things that don't make sense. And it's not making sense right now. I don't get it. How many here went to kindergarten back in 1992, 93? Put your hand up if you did, because I want you to join me on this one before, I take my character below. So if you're in a building and you know the song I'm about to sing, I want you to sing with me, okay? Twaja tuli mbuzi, kati tugunjuse, abazadde mwebale okutuweerera. I mean, how do you grow up and they're telling you, I came as a goat? So I'm in North America, I'm trying to make sense of this thing. I say, hold up, they really were telling us we're that stupid. And I was singing that for 7 years. And this one too, go with me if you know it. You ready? Slave, slave, slave in America, working day and the night, planting sugar and the tea. When I was in I had never been to America. So, I have to say that as a child of the diaspora and who shares two cultures and heritages today, I walk with lingering questions on what information has been fed among my young people. See, schools ain't telling them. Most of these organizations ain't telling them. See, I'm from a hip-hop culture. We draw our foundation on truth, struggle, and reflecting pain. So where we're from, we definitely can't be trading things that are empty. We got to hold on to something because, see, we've been hopeless for years. And when we find this thing called hip-hop, which in Uganda, to translate it for you, we call it Luga Flow, we start finding a new formation that is like, oh, I belong now. Someone's listening. I got a story to tell. Can you put me on? And guess what happens when we get this question zero? The media says, no, it is not happening. Now hold up. 78% under 30. 83% unemployed. What are we gonna do? Schools ain't breeding them for jobs anymore. And so what are we telling our young people that they're going to become? So being that I'm given this opportunity that's freely given, because I was able to tune into the journey to say, I'm reconnecting with the motherland. I want to learn my culture more. I want to use everything my ancestors did as my true definition, because that's where my disconnection happened. I've become a new breed of young Africans who says that my message present when I speak with my authentic voice is to encourage all human beings to reconnect and unplug from the systematic setups that strip us of the dignity day by day of being a human being. So while I'm living and while I'm closing out my session here, my question to you as the audience, and what I want you to take home, I know you have a friend. We all come from different tribes, different cultures, different backgrounds, different occupations. But we have various conversations usually that don't really mean a thing to us. But I want you to take these few questions with you. I want you to ask yourself, how am I living? In case my story ended today, have I been fully in tune with the reason I was here? Now, if you're a parent and you're in a building, the question I want to pose to you is, what legacy and what kind of seeds am I planting in my children's lives to give them the legacy of what bred me? Because I hear some parents these days say, don't speak that language, it's local. I went to a lawyer's office and she said, you know, I'm sad these days. I take my kids to the villages, but they can't even conversate with their grandparents. They've never left Uganda. So this is a serious issue. But the talk today was to open your eyes, your heart, your understanding to a new voice that is growing among young people. A voice that pushes them to be educated, thoroughly first with knowledge of self. Then to go out there, after rekindling their hearts and knowing I'm somebody, to impact their communities. And once they learn the services in their communities, to lead them into the world, to be proud Africans, who walk around the globe emanating the spirits and the glory of our ancestors by singing our songs, by carrying our tradition, by saying that this is who we are, the new breeds of Africa with our authentic voice. Thank you very much.